Hello and welcome back to The Cable Climb. I'm Brady Volpe, and today we're joined by someone who spent nearly 25 years turning coax and fiber into dependable bandwidth, Billy Williams, design engineer for DOCSIS and Video Systems at Comporium. Billy worked his way from HFC mainline tech to network performance analyst and now designs the DOCSIS and RF architectures that keep customers streaming. Billy, welcome to The Cable Climb.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you here, Billy. Why don't we just jump right into the questions so we can start to learn more about you, and also our listeners can learn a little bit more about you and how you've really grown up in the industry, and really what was day one on the job like for you?
What drew me to the industry was I had at that time, technically he's not my father-in-law today, but I still refer to him as my father-in-law. We used to have a great relationship. But my father-in-law worked for Comporium. At the time, he was the central network manager in the area that I still live in Lancaster, and he knew I was not really happy in the job that I had nothing to do with telecommunications whatsoever. Believe it or not, I was a service manager for a pretty large outdoor power equipment company, but I had gone to school for electronics and computer engineering technologies and didn't relate to the industry I was in. And he said, why don't you come put an application in? They called it the phone company at the time because Comporium's start was in telephone, of course. And I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. He said, we've got need for telephone, need for this. And I said, okay. So put an application in, and they interviewed me, and things went well. And I was contacted by a plant manager at that time and said, I'm interested in giving you a position. It'll be probably driving a bucket truck, working on mainline telephone and fiber. And I thought, that's pretty neat. It's interesting. It's something I really would be interested in learning. And he said, okay, give me a week or two. So a week or two passed by, and he calls me back and he says, actually, I'm gonna change it up some. He said, I've got an opening in cable TV. And I thought, I guess I think he saw the expression on my face, and I thought, from fiber to TV, pulling wire inside of a house. And he said, no, I don't think you understand. He said, there's a lot more electronics involved on the TV side.
There's some technology there.
On the coax side, he said, and what you've had in college, he said, I think you'd be more fitted for this. And I said, okay. He said, it pays a little bit more too. I said, hey, I'm in.
That was the clincher, right?
That's exactly right. Let's never forget why we really have a job, right? We may love our jobs, but we wouldn't come if we didn't get paid. So, first day on the job was a lot of safety type things. Our company is pretty big on that, and has been since I've been here. And I said the first day was actually kind of boring. I spent all day watching videos and safety videos and HR type videos, but the first real day on the job was pretty interesting. Since I had basically no experience in it, I got thrown in with a installer at the time, a TV installer. Well, he did both TV and telephone. He was a contractor, so he was not an employee, but we rode around in a Comporium vehicle because I could drive the Comporium vehicle being an employee, but he could come with me. So he taught me all about installing primarily cable TV and modems. We were doing, at that time, the hybrid modems. So we did have where they still use the telephone for the upload speeds, upload data. And
before DOCSIS.
Learned a lot before DOCSIS. That is right. Andy Claybo, never forget. He was a guy from Tennessee. He was a real country type fella, and taught me a lot. Learned a lot from Andy. He was hard to keep up with a pace. The guy set a pace, and you just had to really stay on your P's and Q's to keep up with it. But learned a lot there, and then finally got moved into the group with the main line. We were called line techs then. Our company now calls the same position a broadband facility technician. But at that time, in the area that I worked in, we did not separate inside the home trouble and installations with the main line. So when I was on call or when I was taking troubles or doing any of those normal day-to-day routines, we would troubleshoot and repair from the TV set to the hub, all the way to the hub.
So how did you learn? I mean, like, when you're from the time you got started on a job to when you got that next promotion, there's like a lot of RF that you had to learn. And I mean, did you come by that naturally? Was it trial by fire? How did you develop those skills from like that first day when you're just learning the safety aspects to when you actually had to go out and do work in the field?
I think it takes a little while before you understand that there's a lot involved. At first you think it's just pulling wires and connecting them, right? And then after you mess a lot of things up or spend a day trying to figure out what's wrong with this customer's television set, and if you had known what you needed to know, it would have taken you 20 minutes. You learn a lot by the trial by fire, of course. I also did attend some schools. One of the ones I probably learned the most from was one that Acturna WWG. I know they went through a lot of name changes, but it was kind of a sweep class, if I remember right. And it primarily focused around the meters that we were using then. We were using the old SDA 5000 meters, and which was a tank, big old heavy.
They're great meters. People still love them.
Yep. I did not want to give mine up. That's for sure. I fought it tooth and nail to give that thing up. But we went there for that. Spent probably a week in Indianapolis. So I picked up a lot of that's why I saw what I saw, or that's the function of this meter besides just doing a quick scan. It'll actually do this and this and this. So I learned a lot more details about the meter by going to the company that made the meter. So
so the vendors were really helpful in training.
It was very helpful. My supervisor at the time was a member of the SCTE, and one day he told me, he said, "Hey, tomorrow, wear some decent clothes. We're going to go to an SCTE meeting in Columbia." And I said, "What's the SCTE meeting?" And he was telling me about it, and I was like, "You mean I don't have to, work outside tomorrow in the heat and I get a free lunch? I'm in. Let's go."
The benefits of going to SCTE, yeah.
Exactly right. I still feel that way today when I get to go to SCTE. I'm out of the office and I get a free lunch. Let's go. So,
when you meet people too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. SCTE, you hear this a lot, and I've seen it in a lot of the videos that you have put on with different people. But I don't think it can be overstated how important the SCTE is. It's a lot. It means a lot to me. It has helped me personally and professionally. Made a lot of contacts. I've learned a lot of things from the SCTE that if I had not gotten involved so many years ago, I don't think I'd be in the position that I'm in today. The certifications, what it takes to study and learn for those certifications. Not only that, staying current, attending enough of the chapter meets and participating in different training sessions so you earn the credits to maintain all of your certifications. It's still important to me, and I have no plans of letting those certifications go because I don't want to retake them. I'd like to keep them current with this. But the SCTE has been very important, so I can't stress that enough. If you're in this industry, whether you're a rookie and just starting or whether you've been in it 15, 20 years and you're not involved with SCTE, please check out your local chapter. Those guys can teach you a lot. You can learn a lot, make a lot of connections, and they need participation because without our participation, they won't be here either. So
there won't be an SCTE. So I think I interrupted you. So some of this helped set you up for your next job role then.
The next job role, when I transitioned from being what I call a line tech, from in the field, a field tech, to a network performance analyst, which is a mouthful for sure. Our company was looking to, actually we were getting into activating pre-equalization, right, in DOCSIS 3.1. And it was actually here in 2, but we never did it in 2. But we recognized the benefits of pre-equalization. We also recognize that without someone to monitor it, that it could be a Band-Aid. And our management did not want that to be a Band-Aid. We didn't want to extend failure out just longer turn on a feature that, hey, so I was in the field, we were begging them, please turn on pre-EQ, please turn on it. The SNR is going to be so much better in the field. And they're like, yeah, but that just means you guys won't do as much ingress and you won't do the maintenance like you're supposed to. So they needed to create a position that would kind of bridge that gap. And what they wanted, what the management had decided, was they needed someone who had outside experience. They knew how plant facilities worked and how they were designed. They also needed someone who was what our company and a lot of other companies lovingly like to say is an SME and subject matter expert in our P&M software at the time. Shout out to NimbleThis and our SNMP software too. So I kind of checked a lot of boxes, right? So there were not that many people, number one, that were interested. Not every line tech was ready to come inside and sit down at a desk, right? They liked the freedom. They liked the benefit of being outside. Some of the people who were inside and who were interested in it had never worked outside. So that experience from knowing, well, this is how the cable feeds, and if this group of modems over here has this issue, then it probably comes back to this line extender or this amplifier. So that was a real tight window, so to speak, to have somebody qualify for. So I'd been in the field almost 20 years. I'd been on call. I was a single dad at the time and was ready to come off call, basically. Not many people that I know of love call. They may love working outside, but you rarely hear somebody say, I love call.
I love having my weekends tied up waiting for someone to call. So that has to be that had to be a pivotal transition for you, making that decision to go from the field to an office, because there has to be more people looking at you, kind of focused on what you're doing. Was that something that you were nervous about doing, going from the field into the office environment, or what were your thoughts when you were doing that?
I was a little bit nervous about it. I was kind of nervous from several aspects. One is, when you work outside, your sense of humor, it's a little different. You are what you are surrounded with, and usually when you work outside, you're surrounded with people who have different types of sense of humor, and we'll just kind of leave it there. A lot of
I think people probably get what you're talking about.
so when you move inside, it's a whole different atmosphere, and it's there's a lot of, you're working around with mixed categories of people, so you really have to change what you say and the jokes that you make and things like that. So I was not that I really wasn't just oh my gosh, this guy was a potty mouth. I wasn't really a potty mouth kind of person, but when you move from one atmosphere to another, you really have to remember who your audience is, right? So that was one concern. Losing the freedom of being outside, and if I'm outside and I'm on the side of town that my house is on, and I need to run by the house, I can run by the house when I work outside.
Yep.
Right? If I want to stop in this convenience store over here to get a Coke, I stop in the convenience store and get a Coke, right? Working inside, that you don't have that freedom. I can't just say, hey, I'm just going to go, I'm going to go do whatever I want to do. So I lost some of those freedoms, and I was a little concerned about that. But the benefits, in my opinion, at that time in my life and my career outweighed that.
Right. So you chose the office politics and lack of freedom to gain some maybe different freedoms in your life. That was sort of a change for you.
Definitely a change. I was dating my wife now, and I remember talking to her, and she said, this is what you want. You wanted to get off call. You wanted to get out of the field. You wanted to quit having to climb ladders and, hook poles, which I didn't do that often because I really didn't like that part of it. But I said, yeah, it is. She said, well, I think you should do it. She said, you're not, in our company, it's funny the saying is the only way you get promoted in our company is someone dies or retires, because not many people leave our company. So when an opportunity comes open, if you sleep on it, I may have been outside. I may still be out there. I don't know, so I don't regret that at all. I learned a lot about the way things work inside, and I also learned about things that I was very weak on when I was a line tech, Excel and different types of programs that I had no idea how to do Excel, and I'm still no expert at it, but I know a lot more than when I was driving around in a bucket truck. So I learned a lot of things that I think helped me prepare for the role that I'm in today in engineering.
Yeah, and I think everyone's different. And it's good that you knew your personality well enough to know that you could go from the field into, I would say more of a management position, an indoor position. I met people who have made that transition and have just been really disappointed that they made the transition from going from like the field into a management position, because like you said, you are giving up things in order to do that, and the pressure is different. The politics are different. So I'm glad that you're happy with that. Can you recall maybe when you made that transition, you went from the field to the office environments, a project early on that was, more on the analytical side that convinced you that, this was right from you. You had some leadership capabilities and were ready for even more responsibilities in your new position?
Yeah, probably, as new softwares or new tools came along that our company, and at that time it would have been engineering and that I wasn't in, would have made a decision, we're going to move to this software, or we're going to make a big upgrade here, or we're going to start deploying DAA and things like that, because that was really about the time I transitioned, from the field to the office is when we started doing distributed access. But probably when some of that came along and I got leaned on pretty heavily to be the go-between from, say, engineering management to a lot of the line techs and our, what we call MSTs, our inside techs in the field. I had a lot of good relationships at the time, had worked alongside of these guys a lot. They knew this guy's not a pencil pusher. He knows what he's talking about. Yeah, he aggravates me sometimes, but he was out here. He knows he's not going to try not to send us on a wild goose chase or have us do something really dumb out here, right? And as I started beginning to be used more for the go-between, so to speak, also got asked to help with training. We've got technical training here at Comporium, a really good technical training department, but there's so many things that our company works on and develops and deploys that they can't learn. They can't be an SME in every single thing that they need to do. So when something would come along that involved NimbleThis or any of our other software that I was really familiar with, I would ask, can you help us develop this training module? Then I would get asked, can you help us teach this module to the techs when they come in for training? So when I started doing more and more of that, I thought, maybe this is for me. Like I said, I loved being outside, but I don't miss the call, don't miss the weather and things like that. So the longer I did it, the more it felt comfortable and the more it just fit me. And I think it was the right decision to make. I know for sure now it's the right decision to make. So
you mentioned having mentors when you were out in the field. When you went into more of a management type role or an analyst type role, were you still leaning on mentors, or did you find that you were becoming more the mentor? Because you said that you were doing trainings and things like that. How did you see that role change for yourself?
Well, once you hit about 15 years at a company, if you don't know what you're doing, you're in the wrong place, right? So I had been here pushing 20 years about that time, and less and less did I have to reach out to someone for something I totally didn't understand. Not saying I never needed help. I did need help, but more leaning on resources from outside of our company versus inside of our company. And when you get a phone call from a VP that says, hey, my cable modem has been terrible lately, or someone in my neighborhood has reached out to me, you're expected to know what you're talking about. And most of the time, I'm not sure I'll get back to you is probably not the best answer to someone who's a president or vice president of your company. So I tried to stay ahead of that and be prepared for that. And yes, I still had people, and still to today, still have people I can reach out to in our company, but when you get to be here and this gray starts showing up in your beard, then people reach out to you more than you reach out to them. So, yeah, I guess I never thought about the transition, but, yeah, there was definitely over a period of time where I probably would consider myself a mentor, even though it's weird to say that. So.
But it's true. I mean, you've gained a lot of knowledge over the time. So, as soon as you start giving training to other people, you are that mentor now.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess you are. I guess, if nothing else, when you teach something, you say, don't do this. I screwed this up and I made this mistake. So try not to do this kind of thing. You know, one of the guys that trained me early on when I worked outside told me, I told I was going to do something. I forget what it was. And I said, well, what if I mess this up? And he said, man, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can screw up that, number one, we hadn't already done. Number two, we can't fix. Don't worry about it. Just do it. So, it's not a bad. Now, I don't know if I'd apply that today. I've got some access to things in engineering I probably need to be a little more careful with. But when you're cutting in a trunk amp on the main line in the air, if you screw it up, somebody else can fix it. So.
We'll figure it out. So you've talked a lot about making recommendations for equipment and software and stuff like that. That you've probably had a lot of opportunity to look at your network end to end. Has there anything that has really surprised you, or new technologies that you've looked at that said, wow, I never realized this when I was out in the field?
The transition with DAA and how it's more server based and driven, which is a side of technology that I'll be the first to say I'm not that familiar with, right? And I've told you before in our conversations, I'm not an IP person. I'm not an IT person. Those are not my strengths. I'm an RF person. So, throw some DOCSIS at me, throw some RF at me. I'm pretty comfortable. But the transition to DAA and how complex it has gotten on the server side, and the amount of not only data but tasks that are performed on that side are insane. I used to think that when we had a Airs E6000 CMTS, or actually when we had the C4s, I remember my friend who's in engineering today telling me how much those things cost and the kind of bandwidth and how much current they drew, which was insane how much current they drew. And I thought, this is crazy. And to see that change from that to these servers, it's just, it's so odd, and it's kind of amazing to see that and the benefits and some of the not great things you get out of that. They're more complex, so they're more prone to what we've seen with kind of bugs and things like that we have to deal with, but the benefits that they provide outweigh it. But that's probably the one thing that sticks out in my mind is how now we have that, and today we're testing DOCSIS 3.1 Plus, and I've performed speed tests, pulling 8 gig download speeds on a cable modem, on one single cable modem, and I remember the days of 50 megs thinking, man, this is crazy speed. Now we can, I'll take pictures of it. I'll do an 8 gig download speed test, and I send it to my friends, and they're like, is that fiber? No, it's not. That's a cable modem. Oh, there's no way a cable modem can do that. Well, yeah, it actually can.
So when you talk about the complexities of DAA, do those complexities just impact guys that are in the head end, the IT guys and stuff like, people like yourself? Or are those complexities also impacting guys out in the field?
Yeah, it goes all the way to the guys in the field. Some of those guys have picked it. Some of those guys have grown up in that world, right? It's been out long enough now that we have technicians here that it's been here since they were a technician. They don't know
since they started.
That's right. So to them, it's just another thing. Well, it's just DAA, right? It does trickle down. I shouldn't say down. It trickles out to the field. And some of those guys are going to be a little more resistant to it, and I don't like this, and we have problems with it. Back when we had this, we didn't have as many problems. Well, you're right, but we also couldn't provide those kinds of speeds, and if we didn't make this transition and couldn't provide those kind of speeds, we would be losing customers left and right. So it's a necessary evil on some of these growing pains, right? But yeah, it absolutely goes all the way out into the field, because these guys are, and we try not to make too many changes too often, but you have to keep up with competition and technology, and we make changes, and the guys in the field are like, I can't, what are we doing out here, and what kind of QAM are we pushing out here? What do I need to be testing over here? And they're like, well, I can't keep up with all of this, and I'm like, take notes. That's all I can tell you. keep up with. So just be thankful you don't have an old meter that you have to change the channel plan every time you go to a different area. Your new meters, you guys are spoiled. You plug it up and it builds the channel plan every single time they connect it now. So they're like, what do you mean different channel plans? You used to have to build channel? Yes, we used to have to manually build a channel
manually
plan.
Enter it channel by channel. That brings up another question. So from like the early SDA that you had to today's new advanced meters, DAA technology, P&M technology, there's lots of different platforms and technologies that have evolved. Of those or anything else that you may think of, which do you think which technology do you think has had the biggest impact on your career growth, and why?
Probably, and this is going back a ways, but probably reverse activation.
Really? So why? What was about the reverse activation? So that, and for people who don't know, at one time we just had one-way amplification. We did not have a return in our cable network. So why is activating the return? Why did that have the biggest impact in your career growth?
Well, for one, timing of it. When I entered this job, we literally were receiving parts to activate reverse two-way communications. And to me, I'm a new guy, so again, talking about the guys today growing up with DAA, I grew up with reverse, right? But the guys that were here before me, some of them have retired and moved on. The reverse was totally new to them. Two-way, we stuff goes one way. Why does it? Why do we need to go back?
Why do we need that reverse?
What's that for? But for me, kind of relating so I transitioned from a consumer to a technician. How about that? So as a consumer, as a nerd, I'm now calling myself a nerd like a lot of us were, right?
Yeah.
You're talking to the kid who went to computer camp at 13 when my friends were going to basketball
camp. Me too.
Right? So for me as a teenager, when I still lived at home with my parents, when I say we, the phone company that I work for now, which was just called Lancaster Telephone Company, it wasn't called Comporium then, but there was no dial-up option with the phone company directly. So the nearest ISP was in a town called Monroe, North Carolina, which was only about 30 miles from our house, but it was across state lines. Fortunately, my mom and dad had a plan because she worked in Monroe and had family in Monroe. We had purchased a plan where you could dial long distance in this area and not be charged for it, just unlimited, right? We're talking on the telephone, people, not cell phone. This is, all dating myself, right? So when I decided that I wanted to play with this new thing called the internet, I found an ISP in Monroe. It was like I said, it was a long distance phone, but it wouldn't charge my mom and dad the phone.
Because you had to do dial up for like AOL or CompuServe or one of these companies like that.
So I'd had dial up for a while, and then same transition there, man. We had 28K and then 33K and 56K and
56 fast.
Yeah, that's right. So we've been fighting that forever. But when I went from that to a one-way, what we call a hybrid cable modem that just used the cable TV system for the download speeds, I think I went to a meg, if I remember correctly.
Blazing fast.
It's insane. And that's when I got hired on with the company, right?
Yeah.
So then I get hired on with the company, I start learning from these guys, hey, this is what we're doing, and we're modifying these, and when I say modifying, we actually bench modified our amplifiers at our building, our facility. So we didn't send them off. We actually opened up the modules, put the hybrids in there, the diplexes, and all that kind of stuff. So you learned a lot just by watching these other guys, and they're literally soldering this, and then we'd have to put it in sweep it and put it in oscilloscope, make sure everything looked good on it. Oh, that was good. So we'd have a stack of these modules ready to be modified. So they said, all right, you're going to go and activate the reverse to your house. And that's how I learned to do reverse. So they gave me a stack. I had my stuff, had my meters, went out with another guy, and then I got trained on how to do two-way activation in my node. I should say the leg, because back then, your node would pass 1,000 houses or something. Yeah. But anyway, we did the node all the way to my house. And when we finished, swapped that hybrid modem for a two-way modem. And boy, was I in heaven then at that point. No more using the phone line, no more tying your phone line up to get on the internet. So that was a huge change to me. I'm sure if you ask that same question from 10 other people, you would probably get 10 other answers to that question. But that's how it affected me personally at home. So it kind of tied in together from doing it at work, from what the benefit is from the consumer.
Well, you were really hands-on with that. I mean, it's awesome that Comporium was doing their own upgrades of amplifiers because, most people are just buying them and replacing the amplifiers that were in there. But was your modem, your two-way modem, still pre-DOCSIS? And if so, do you remember what brand of modem it was?
Cuba 1100, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
So
pre-DOCSIS.
Yeah, I was going to say I think that's pre-DOCSIS. Yeah. Good old modem, man. They couldn't hardly kill those modems.
Keep getting better, though. So I know you mentioned, you've already talked about SCTE and certifications. Are there any particular certifications that you found, or even self-taught courses or anything like that really accelerated your shift from troubleshooting in the outside plant to the jobs that you're doing now that you would recommend to other people?
Yeah, if you're in the same field, so to speak, if you're doing anything at all or hope to do anything at all with mainline maintenance tech, I would recommend the BDS, the Broadband Distribution Specialist. That was actually the first certification that I took because it lined up with what I was already doing, right? And I remember studying for that course with two other guys that I worked with, and those guys had been here longer than I had. They knew more about it than I had, and we studied a lot. And one of those guys had taken it once prior, and he did not pass it. And I thought, if he can't pass this, I can't pass it. I mean, there's just no way. And it's a very broad, and I don't know, I'm sure it's changed a lot. I mean, it's been 15, 20 years since I took that test, but it covered construction aspects and things that I was not that familiar with. So I really had to learn a lot about that side of it. But anyway, the three of us went back in there, two of us for the first time and the other guy for his second try. And we all passed that time. And we didn't cheat or anything. We had a proctor in there like we were supposed to. But we all passed that time. And I thought, at that time, they didn't give you a score unless you failed. If you failed, they would give you your score. But if you passed, it just said pass.
You're good.
You can now see the score, even on my test. Like years later, when they started adding the scores to it, I went back and there was the score. It just appeared one day, and I don't remember what I made on it. It was not super high. It was.
But you passed.
They don't put that score on the certificate, right? That's what they always say about. You don't know if your doctor graduated first or last in his class. He's just got a degree, so. But our company was getting pretty involved with certifications and really kind of emphasizing the importance behind them. And they actually based some of our tier promotions. In other words, BFT 1, 2, 3, 4 type promotions were based on somewhat, not wholly, but somewhat based on SCTE certification. So I went back and took the BPI, which is the installer, and the BPT, which was the technician, and I think there's one more, BPE maybe expert, and I never did take that one. But there's one on wireless Wi-Fi that I've kind of toyed around with. If I can find enough time to study for it, I probably would like to take that one too. But I do have 3 current ones, so I've got those proudly displayed on my wall in my cubicle there. And I also took the early on when they first came out with the P&M course. It wasn't a certification like the BDS was, but it was a course. And I remember taking it not too long after I moved into the network performance analyst position. So that one was a breeze. I had been doing P&M and with Nimble for 3 or 4 years at that point. So I was like, oh yeah, this.
You got that one. Yeah. So you mentioned the Wi-Fi course. Is there much that you do with Wi-Fi in your analysis work, particularly like whole home Wi-Fi design? Do you see that expanding? Is that important in your area or not?
Yeah, it's a big benefit to our company to have managed Wi-Fi. when I first came in the group, this tells you how naive I was. My boss man comes to me, and I had worked with him. He knew me, been here a long time. Comporium's not a huge company, so most of us know each other, right? And I had all these expectations that I'm going to do this because I work in line tech, and I can do this because I know, Nimble and this and that, and I do some of that. But he comes to me not long after I got moved into the position and says, "You're going to learn how to do managed Wi-Fi." What? Say what now? He said, "I'm going to need you to learn this platform and become an SME in it." And I thought, now wait a minute, you know that I was a line tech. I didn't install Wi-Fi. He said, "Yep, you're going to learn it though." And that's how jobs usually go, right? You're going to step out of your comfort zone and do what the boss man tells you to do. So I spent a lot of time learning, and still am learning all the aspects of Wi-Fi, mesh Wi-Fi, managed Wi-Fi, and how all of that works together. Plus, he had been doing some of that himself as a director, right? And that doesn't make the most sense, but he just didn't have another person to kind of hand it off to. So when I came in, he gladly handed some of that off to me. So we do put a lot of value on the whole home managed. We call it premium Wi-Fi at our company, and we track on how that affects trouble calls and truck rolls. Not just the revenue. A lot of people think, well, they just charge more money for that. But and of course, most companies are going to charge more money for it. But it's not just that. It also it helps reduce cost on the back end. With being able to have that insight into the home, and how it actually can resolve issues or make recommendations on its own when a customer calls in and tech support says, I see in your account your Samsung TV has really low signal.
Yep.
Have you thought about maybe moving it some, or is there something possibly like a mirror that could be, blocking that signal, et cetera, et cetera. So that insight, without having to send a technician to the home sometimes, not all the time, but that insight is really valuable to have, from that aspect. And that's something that, 10 years ago, you just wouldn't have had that kind of thing. So it's pretty neat. I have it at home now, play with it a lot. My wife just loves all the Wi-Fi changes that I do at home, and like, are you playing with the Wi-Fi again? What is going on? I'm like, I'm sorry, honey, I got to test something for work again. So.
Yeah, well, we just had a channel today asking about, what access points we would recommend. So I think being able to, as a cable operator, to answer those questions for subscribers is, as you said, it's a great advantage because it gives the subscriber a better quality of experience when you can, correctly give them proper access points, see if they're working properly, and just make sure their Wi-Fi experience is good. Because as we give them higher and higher speeds on their modems, then the Wi-Fi becomes that next issue that they're having.
Yeah, and things that, as an industry that I feel like we haven't done a good job of is customer education and managing their expectations with broadband, with internet. Because if your refrigerator stops working, and just about everybody else knows, they're not going to call their electrical provider because the refrigerator stopped. Nor are they going to call their water company if the sink or the commode stops working. But if this device right here stops working, the first people they call is their internet provider, right? So we are starting to recognize, and I think a lot of other service providers are too, is that we can no longer say, well, it's good to the modem. We've got to take it to this device, right? We've got to take it all the way to this device now. And part of that is having managed Wi-Fi. A huge part of that is having managed Wi-Fi.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. So looking back at your career, what concrete steps, with best recommendations, would you tell a brand new installer or a service tech, starting their career today? What advice would you give them to do, say, in the first 5 years of their career, if they want to end up in your job?
Well, the first would be, if you haven't taken any type of schooling at all, see if you can manage to fit some in. And with options today with online, most people if you really want to, you can find the time to do a little bit. I'm not saying get a master's degree in 2 years or anything like that at all. Not even necessarily a degree at all, but just some of the classes that are available. There are so many more available now than 100 years ago when I was in school that you should be able to find some things that relate to our industry easily online, and either no charge for some, very, very inexpensive for others, and oftentimes the company you work for will either pay you up front for those or reimburse you for those kinds of things. There's money in their budget for education, and most companies, 98% of it never gets used, right? So there's money there to be used. So don't let money or time stop you from doing the education. It's one of my biggest regrets in life that I didn't get more college education than what I have today. Probably the second thing would be really start using AI. Learn about AI, play with AI, and then use it, because we hear AI, and what can it really do? Anything. There's almost nothing it can't do, and I'm learning that more and more and more. You want a spreadsheet you're just not happy with the way your spreadsheet looks before you present this thing to a VP or your boss. Throw that thing in Chat GPT, and it's going to spit it back. First, it's going to ask you, well, how do you want it to look? And you tell it, I want it to be polished, or I want this, give me some good colorful backgrounds and fix my graphs for me. In just a couple of minutes, it's going to give you a new spreadsheet to download, and you're going to open it up and go, oh, man, this is my stuff, but it sure looks a lot better than what I had before.
It does.
So a lot of people think AI is cheating, and it's not cheating. It's just, to me, it makes a lot of things I do more efficient. Right?
It's another tool. It's another tool in the toolbox.
It is, and if I've got an email that's got a really important email that has a lot of weight, and I want to make sure that I've got this thing right. I don't want somebody to read it and go, he can't even type out an email. Why should I listen to his suggestion? I'm going to run that thing through ChatGPT. I'm not always going to use it. Sometimes I don't like what ChatGPT gives me, but most of the time it's going to make just some minor adjustments that polish it up. And then, like I said, it's not like Billy didn't even make this suggestion. This doesn't sound like something he would say. It just polishes it up. And those two things, take the time to get some education if you don't have it already, and absolutely learn about AI, because the less you know about it, the more you're going to get left behind. AI is an absolute crucial tool, and not just from your own position. Most companies now are struggling to say, what are we doing that could be done better with AI, more efficiently with AI? And who can I find in my company who knows AI that can start making these recommendations? So AI. I know we kind of get tired of hearing it, and it's a buzzword, but it's really true.
No, Billy, I'm so glad that you mentioned AI in this conversation that we're having, because I am fully on board with everything you just said about it. It's another tool that we can use in our toolbox, and I think a lot of people may be missing out on it because they're not embracing it or they're worried about it. But to your point, I think companies are looking internally to see who they have that can use it to help them, and I think all your recommendations on that are spot on. So thanks so much for bringing that up. So Billy, that was our last question for you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That is a wrap on today's Cable Climb. Huge thanks to Billy Williams for sharing the journey from bucket truck to DOCSIS design desk and giving us a front row look at what it takes to keep modern broadband humming. If you enjoyed the conversation, tap the like, hit subscribe, and let us know your thoughts or questions for Billy in the comments below. Until next time, keep climbing and keep the plant shining. Thanks, everyone. So long.
Thank you.